Christian Bale was preparing for his role in American Psycho, dressing the part, hitting the gym, getting his teeth redone. There was just one problem. He didn't actually have the part. Leonardo DiCaprio did. What Went Wrong is a podcast dedicated to the idea that every movie is a miracle. Join Lizzie Bassett and Chris Winterbauer every other week as they unearth the chaos and humanity behind Hollywood's biggest flops and most shocking successes. They aren't here to dunk on your favorite films. They're here to celebrate movies. As the New York Times said, they're movie industry people who truly love films and the people who make them. Listen to What Went Wrong wherever you get your podcasts.
When you think about businesses that are selling through the roof, like Skims or Allbirds, sure, you think about a great product, a cool brand, and great marketing. But an often overlooked secret is actually the businesses behind the business, making selling and for shoppers buying simple. For millions of businesses, that business is Shopify. It's home of Shop Pay, the #1 checkout in the world. You can use it to boost conversions up to 50%, meaning way less carts going abandoned and way more sales going through to checkout. Upgrade your business and get the same checkout Allbirds uses. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/income, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/income to upgrade your selling today. Shopify.com/income.
One hit is all you need to make the money guaranteed, and you can live off royalties forever.
And it makes me wonder, is it just a wonder, or is it one hit thunder?
Chris, we have been cranking out these bonus episodes as of late. But there's just been a lot of music-related things happening. And the most recent one, I don't think I intended for us to do this one, but someone on our Facebook group asked, are you guys going to do something about the SNL 50-year anniversary concert? We watched it and said, yeah, we could talk about this.
Yeah. And then I watched the actual, from when we're recording this, last night was the actual SNL 50-year anniversary special. But I do want to talk to you about the Homecoming concert, which was a couple days earlier on Valentine's Day of 2025. And I got to tell you, you and I think we both shared this sentiment. I was ready to turn it off within 20 seconds when I saw Jim Fallon out there dancing and singing like an idiot. What disrespect to
the great John Belushi.
Yeah, to the memory of John Belushi. Dude, Jim Fallon is just the worst.
And of course, you get more Jimmy Fallon than anybody in this special. Let me ask you a question, Chris, because I think I know what your opinions are of last night's show as well. Do we want to talk about last night's show first so that we can end on the positives of the Homecoming concert?
Sure. We'll go in reverse order. Yes. Last night was the SNL 50-year anniversary special. It was 3 hours long, maybe more than 3 hours long.
I watched from 7 p.m. when the red carpet started until it went off the air at 11:30 at night. So it was 4.5 hours of my time that I put towards this special. And the only noteworthy thing in the red carpet was that I think Chris Rock threw a bunch of shade at Kim Kardashian.
Really?
When she was being interviewed. She was being interviewed, and all of a sudden, Chris Rock just pops out of nowhere and is like, oh, you're talking to one of the great SNL hosts. He goes, you got Alec Baldwin, you got Tom Hanks, and I guess you got Kim K, and then he just walked away.
Okay.
And I was like, wow, Chris Rock seems to have either actually really thought Kim K was great at hosting or just wanted to throw a bunch of shade on live TV at her. But we get into this show. We start with a musical performance. It kicks off with Sabrina Carpenter and Paul Simon doing a song. And my thoughts as that song were happening were, A, dear God, Paul Simon is so old now. And B, there's no world where I believe that Sabrina Carpenter requested to sing this song with Paul Simon.
I got to tell you, for the 50-year anniversary episode of Saturday Night Live, which is on Sunday, by the way. Strange choice. With every like past cast member, so many celebrities. Why? Look, I love her. I think Sabrina Carpenter's great. Why is she so involved? Why is Bad Bunny so involved? Why is Pedro Pascal so involved? Why are these people that aren't like, I don't know, I like these people, but like, I just didn't understand like the high level of involvement of some people in this.
Especially because, not for nothing, we've seen all of those people on SNL in the last calendar year. So, like, for me, it was like when Lorena Newman or Garrett Morris showed up, I was like, oh, shit. You know, like, it's like, here's like someone from the first cat. Like, when you saw, Perfectly Acceptable was like Eddie Murphy being in there as much as he was. Like, I would much rather you stack the show with cast members across 50 years than just random hosts that also happened to be there, unless like you're doing something where, I mean, and even Tom Hanks, it's like, is Doug from Black Jeopardy really the most noteworthy character that Tom Hanks has ever played? Like, dude, if you're bringing in those hosts, they have to be like playing a character that they've played 1,000,000 times before on the show that's like as iconic as any SNL sketch character.
Yeah, you know, I got caught up in the SNL hype this past week. I watched all the documentaries. There were 4 different documentaries on Peacock.
I gotta watch those still. Are they worth it?
I thought they were pretty decent. There was one about the cowbell sketch. There was one about the weird season 11. There was one about the writers, and then there was one more. But I guess in the midst of all of this, I kind of forgot that I don't like Saturday Night Live all that much.
Yeah.
I think I'm thankful for a lot of comedians and that came out of it and went on to do things I love. But it's only a sketch once in a blue moon that is actually funny from Saturday Night Live.
So I'm going to equate, I've used this quote before about wrestling, but I feel like it's the same with SNL to a certain extent. Like, 99% of the time when you're watching wrestling, it's bad, but like the 1% of the time that it's good, it's like incredibly good. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that, like, I loyally watch SNL on Sunday morning. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to stay up and watch it live, but the next morning I'll watch it. And like, Barb and I can knock out the hour and 15-minute episode of Saturday Night Live sometimes within 30 to 45 minutes, where we'll just be like, oof, this sketch is a swing and a miss, and we'll fast forward. If we're not hooked by the musical performance after the first minute, we kind of push forward. And then we always give like the cold open and the weekend update, like our full undivided attention. But every once in a while, there is like a bit that works. And usually you find out about it because it becomes like part of the cultural zeitgeist. The thing that I don't understand, and maybe it's just because I don't like this cast member that much, why is Domingo like the biggest sketch of this like current era? Because they just keep doing this wedding bit over and over and over again. And like, again, like we said, that whole sketch is more built around Pedro Pascal and Sabrina Carpenter than any of the actual cast members of Saturday Night Live at that point.
I mean, I guess Dana Carvey wasn't there for some reason. I saw a lot of people take a note of that. And I know that has he had some health issues recently or something?
I mean, it wouldn't shock me. They're all getting so old. Every time that a cast member showed up, I was like, God, even the 90s people are like, not aging gracefully anymore.
Look, that aside, we're all getting older, but I would have liked to have seen Wayne's World. I know that maybe that one maybe is not going to happen, but I don't know. Yeah, we did get Linda Richman. We got the lady who says, "I'm 50."
Yeah, which I didn't really even remember that character. I was like,
you don't remember that character?
Until she did the kick, I was like, oh yeah, this character. But like, in the grand scheme of Molly Shannon's career, that's the most noteworthy character we could like bust out on that
Yeah.
stage. I even thought, like, look, I am always a fan of a good Black Jeopardy sketch.
Yeah.
But I was watching that and I'm like, the best part of this is Eddie Murphy playing Tracy Morgan. Why is this not just a classic Jeopardy sketch with Will Ferrell playing Alex Trebek at that point? Like, I think the biggest issue that I had with last night's show was that it was kind of what I was afraid the music documentary was going to be, which is like, it was like a 3.5 hour circle jerk about how great SNL and Lorne Michaels was.
Yeah.
And it started to get to the point where, like, even the Weekend Update didn't really tackle any of the news of the last couple weeks and was just about SNL turning 50 for 10 minutes. And I'm like, this is rough. Like, I just kept feeling like it was rough. The only highlights to me throughout most of the night, outside of a joke here or there, was like, I thought Bill Murray doing his ranking of Weekend Update hosts got a smile out of me. I loved is a strong word. I enjoyed the Paul McCartney ending of the Abbey Road album performance. But the highlight is honestly Molly Cyrus and Brittany Howard covering Nothing Compares to You. Like, that was the best moment of the 3.5 hours, I think.
Which even that felt... First
Very
of all,
heavy-handed.
Yeah, they did the Prince version. That's fine. But also, it's like, didn't Sinead get ostracized? And now you didn't... I don't believe they ever had her back, right? After that, they definitely didn't have Sinead back after that.
And
now...
They murdered her career,
Yeah.
and now they're, like, retrospectively trying to pretend that they didn't.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. There's a lot... I'm sure you could read some think pieces and you could have some big conversations about that. But, you know, big shout out to Miley and Brittany Howard for doing the song. That's cool. You know, Debbie Downer, I was like, oh, yeah, here we go. This is going to be funny. And it was like a poorly written Debbie Downer sketch. Like,
yeah.
I just feel like you knew this thing was coming for years. You could have even brought in some old writers. You could have had every writer from the past writing just the best sketch they could, and it just felt like a, I don't know, below average episode with just like a big celebrity audience or something. I hate to be so critical about it. Look, you know why I'm being so critical about it is because I wanted to love it. I was like, oh man, here we go. I'm excited. I can't wait to watch this. And
look, I'm going to say the same thing I say about movies that are longer than 90 minutes. You better make it worth every second that I'm watching it if you're going to go over 90 minutes with a movie. This was a 3.5 hour SNL episode that I don't even think it would have been a good 90-minute episode with a ton of cuts.
Right.
And there was just a lot, like, someone texted me, a past guest of our show texted me, Joe Farron, and he was like, what are your thoughts on this characters and bits that aged poorly in memoriam segment? And I was like, I would have, if not cut this entirely, I would have trimmed this down to like 1 minute. Don't use the clips and the dialogue, for crying out loud. Just like show the character and just like maybe underneath like why they think it's cancelable, and maybe do a running bit of like an apology underneath that's getting more and more like angry that they have to keep apologizing. But like playing jokes that aged like milk for 4 straight minutes was a weird call.
It's Pat didn't even make the cut.
Yeah, which is like the one I go to the most.
Yeah.
It's like, this is a bad sketch.
I got to tell you, too, that call me too overly sensitive or whatever, but the world is a terrible place right now. And I like a lot of the people in that room. And nothing against getting together with your friends, but there was no punching up to power done. In fact, the couple little things you brought up is that characters the in the MAGA hat, the Tom Hanks in the MAGA hat, Doug or whatever. Like, why is that funny? I don't get what's funny about that. And also, another thing I didn't think was funny, man. And look, I like Steve Martin and whatever, Martin Short, but like they made a joke in there where like ICE took away Martin Short or something. And I was like, is this funny? Like,
Yeah.
this is actually happening to people. This
Yeah.
isn't like a funny little joke that ICE is going to deport Martin Short to Canada or whatever. Like, once again, maybe I'm being overly sensitive. I don't think I am when that's something that's happening. People are like, I don't get the comedy here. And there was nothing. I was fine. If for one night we cannot bring up the fucking terrible guy's name, I'm like, I'm all for it. But like, if you're going to make jokes, like what poor taste, Steve Martin. You didn't question that joke?
Yeah, it was all in all kind of a rough night, but maybe we're also being really hard on it because the homecoming concert, despite the Jimmy Fallon of it all, was actually pretty good.
Yeah, dude, I got to tell you real quick, speaking of Jimmy Fallon, you don't watch Tim Heidecker's Office Hours podcast, right?
I don't.
Okay.
Was he on there?
No. It was funny. Like, they talked about Jimmy Fallon on there, did something like making fun of Jimmy Fallon, and Jimmy Fallon's lawyers were so litigious that they took the episode down of Office Hours, like off of YouTube. And so they put up a clip from it. And dude, it's so funny because they were making fun of, Tim was like, he's like, I put on Jimmy Fallon. He's like, I feel like I'm watching The Corpse of the Tonight Show. And he said, this was an actual joke. And then they showed a clip of it. This was a joke from Jimmy Fallon's monologue. He said, yeah, I was watching the Super Bowl and, it was so boring by halftime at our Super Bowl party. We turned it off and put on the new season of Severance. That was the joke.
It's a bad joke. That's a terrible joke.
I turned off the Super Bowl to watch Severance. That was a Jimmy Fallon. Like, where's the joke? I don't understand the joke. Like, it's just, he's so unbelievably unfunny. Like, he's probably the most unfunny person maybe that was ever on Saturday Night Live.
I would rank him that low. I genuinely would. I think that he is horrendous.
And
yet that's what I said to Barb. Like, when we were watching, I looked at her, I was like, was there truly no one else that they could pick to MC this 3-hour concert?
They had hundreds of choices. Hundreds. In that room. Let John Hamm do it. Dude, I'll tell you, let the person who was having the most fun in the entire room, do you know who it was? Who was having the most fun in that entire room?
There are at least two people I can think of because Paul Rudd looked like he was having a blast, and Pedro Pascal was losing his goddamn mind anytime that they cut to him.
Yeah.
Hey, it's Jonathan London of the Geekscape podcast, and I want to tell you all about the first official Geekscape comic book, Paul London, Hero of the Prophecy. This is equal parts sci-fi fantasy, comedic adventure, and pro wrestling entertainment told in a nostalgic style. If you're a fan of 80s films like Conan the Barbarian, Krull, Willow, the Beastmaster, and comedic mistaken identity movies like The Army of Darkness, Three Amigos, and Galaxy Quest, you're gonna love Paul London, Hero of the Prophecy. That's right, I wrote it about my younger brother Paul London, former WWE Cruiserweight and Tag Team Champion. But in this story, he's now washed up, down on his luck, and then magically transported across the universe to a distant planet of sword and sorcery. Once there, he's mistaken to be the hero of the prophecy, destined to free an entire kingdom from the evil sorcerer Ramzar. This is 26 pages of full-color pro wrestling fantasy comic book adventure. Podcast listeners, this is a comic for you. Go to herooftheprophecy.com to learn more. Paul London, Hero of the Prophecy.
At the start, little rough. I wasn't sure. I was like, I don't know if I'm going to last 3 hours of this because it was, it was the Miley Cyrus did Flowers, which was fine, but it's not like a song I care about. Yeah.
I want to talk about that. She did the same thing again that she did at the Grammys where she's like ad-libbing like through the whole song. Could you imagine if I was playing a show and just between every line that I sing, I'm like, there's my boy Matt Kelly in the audience. She's just like doing that thing. And I don't know. It's so weird. And I'm not a huge fan of that song anyway. I think Brittany Howard is pretty cool.
I really think Brittany Howard's cool. Between the crazy little thing called Love performance here and the Nothing Compares to You performance, I was like, I need to give Brittany Howard more attention than I had because
Yeah.
I was not familiar with her. And then it's followed by Bad Bunny, who I also like. I'm glad that Bad Bunny's been having a great year. I could not care less about the music of Bad Bunny, so that was like another like 2 songs from this. I mean, I am an unapologetic Bill Murray fan, and this like Nick Valentine lounge singer just felt like a lot.
It took it was so long, and I was waiting for something funny to happen, and
it was rough.
It wasn't.
But then things started to pick up for me.
Yeah.
Because he introduces Eddie Vedder, who,
Yeah.
like, you know, you and I think are both, we'd say, like, lukewarm Pearl Jam fans, right? Like, the first 3 albums are big for us, and then we kind of phase out. He does a killer cover of The Waiting by Tom Petty, and then goes into Corduroy from Pearl Jam. And I was just like, hell yes. Like,
That was actually really good. I liked his heartfelt like shout out to a bunch of the cast members and writers that had passed. And I thought he was really, really good. In fact, once that performance is over, I'm like, you know what? I'm adding Corduroy to my playlist.
It's a good song. I never remember what it's called because Corduroy does not make sense as the title of that song to me. But
yeah.
Then we get Tracy Morgan doing the Astronaut Jones theme song, which tickled me because I love... The Astronaut Jones is one of my absolute favorite reoccurring bits that Tracy Morgan would do. I put it over like Brian Fellows.
Oh, wow.
To me, I think Astronaut Jones is so funny.
Dude, I got to tell you, another Saturday Night Live. I feel like on a recent episode, I was trying to explain to you this thing they always do on Saturday Night Live. Brian Fellows is a great example. The Goulet character is a perfect example. It's always the character saying their name. Like, I'm Brian Fellows or Goulet, and they just keep doing it. Like, that's something that that's like such a crutch or something on.
Well, I was talking to Barb about who I think does good impressions, and I was like, I think Dana Carvey's one of the best impressionists in SNL, and one of my examples was Homeboy never needs to say the name of the character he's playing.
Yeah, he doesn't go like, he doesn't go, church lady.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so weird.
Tracy Morgan sets up this B-52s performance, and it made me sad that the B-52s have officially retired from touring because they just look like a good time. I've always liked the music of the B-52s. I can't imagine, I'm assuming, I have no evidence of this one way or the other, so I apologize if I'm incorrect in this. I think Sarah Sherman is gay, but like for her and Bowen Yang to get to go on stage with like legitimate queer icons like the B-52s and just like riff off of that, just so cool. Like that was like one of those moments, and Fred Armisen up there on the drums, like I was just like, this is cool. Like I'm into this. I'm into like these classic 70s and 80s performers of SNL doing stuff with like different cast members. Fred Armisen, like a couple minutes later, is also drumming with Devo. Like that was really cool to watch for me.
Was he? I didn't realize that for some reason.
Yeah, he was, because the drummer for Devo died recently. So he was filling in on the drums for Devo, which if I have to pick my favorite performance of the night, and I mean, I'm a diehard Devo fan anyway, Devo going out there in their, like 60s or 70s and still having that no fucks given punk attitude that they had in like 1977 was awesome.
Yeah,
and
that was good.
Cutting to, of all people, Brendan Fraser just singing his heart out along to this like kind of obscure B-52's early song was like, I was so into this.
Devo, you mean?
What did I say? B-52?
Yeah.
Devo. Yeah. Uncontrollable Urge by Devo.
Well,
and they're like ripping off their clothes while they're performing. And so I was like, this is so fucking cool. Devo's
cool.
the best.
You did skip the Backstreet Boys performance.
Oh, yes. Which, what's her name? Heidi from the current cast may be the biggest Backstreet Boys fan I've ever seen in my life, because she was screaming when that song started playing.
I loved when... What's the main guy? I don't know if he's the first guy who started singing. Which, by the way, when he
Nick Carter.
No, not Nick Carter. He's like the short guy.
Brian.
What's his name?
I think it's Brian.
Okay,
There was
I'm not
Brian,
sure.
AJ, Nick, and I can never remember the other two. Howie. There was a Howie in there.
Yeah, probably Brian. He was the
Yeah.
first guy to start singing, and something happened. He was rough. When he first started singing, I was like, whoa. I don't know. But that same guy, it was pretty funny that he went up and like made Seinfeld sing.
This is followed by the Backstreet Boys come out, Devo performs, and then we are treated to what I think is arguably the best moment of the night, which is that we cut to Lady Gaga playing Shallow on the piano.
Yeah.
And then there's Andy Samberg singing it super off key. And we get this insane medley of all of the best Lonely Island songs. And I was blown away by how good Lazy Sunday went with the turn his TV off beat when he screamed mustard and the beat changed. Like,
dude,
I had so much fun with this.
It's so crazy how much Kendrick Lamar is referenced and joked about this week or whatever on everything nonstop. Nonstop. Yeah. That's all people talk about. And I mean, it's timely.
Yeah.
I wasn't as into this as you were, I guess.
Oh, I mean, I love so much of the Lonely Island stuff, and I love this. I love seeing Parnell out there. Yeah. I love seeing T-Pain singing again. Like, there were some really big moments. I would have loved for them to have gotten Michael Bolton to come out as opposed to Eddie Vedder doing the Jack Sparrow part, but I had fun with that. The part that people really have been talking about was this moment after this. Keenan comes out and introduces Lauryn Hill featuring Wyclef Jean, to which I texted you and was like, no one could text Praz. Like, I guarantee he's not busy right now. Just go for the full Fugees reunion at that point.
Yeah, I don't know.
But we get Lost Ones, we get X Factor, we get 911, and we get Killing Me Softly with his song, all in rapid succession. And I gotta say, Lauryn Hill still got it. Like, she hit that stage, she was spitting those verses like nobody's business.
I gotta tell you a couple things. She performed my favorite song probably ever, X Factor. Yeah. And I just wish they would have done, like, they did like a sort of different version of it and like a medley version of it. And I'm like, okay, I'll take what I can get. Oversensitive Chris again here had the same complaint about a Big Boy performance at one point. Why you gotta wear fur?
I feel like we've grown so past fur coats at this point that it's like, why? Yeah, good call. Like, why? I didn't even think about that. But you're absolutely right.
I was disappointed to see that.
Here was my genuine favorite moment. I loved the Devo stuff. I loved the Lonely Island stuff. But when I first started watching SNL, it was 1995-96 season. So a season that's not looked at as a particularly like home run heavy season. They were kind of juggling a bunch of new names at that point. And one of my favorite characters ever was Will Ferrell and Anna Gasteyer as Bobby and Marty Culp. This like old couple musical teachers that would do these medleys of songs that were always like outrageous for them to sing. The thing that I loved about these bits was almost never the singing. It's the preamble that they do before the singing is so funny because they're both so sincere in how they play these characters. And this was like no different. All the different ways that they described people smoking weed. like I think at one point Will Ferrell says something like, yeah, they were just taking a huge hunk off of the ganj back there. Like,
you know, Will Ferrell really was a huge part of this whole thing. I love Will Ferrell. Why
I think that this
you?
was the best Will Ferrell moment of the whole weekend for me. Okay. I love these characters so much. And again, going back to Joe Farron, we were talking about this. These sketches are basically gone. You cannot find them.
Why?
Because of all the copyrights to the songs that they sing. So when they were uploading these old episodes to Peacock to save money, they cut every single sketch with these two. So like this was like a huge deal for them to do these characters because it's not even like you can rediscover them easily through like the Peacock app.
Wow.
And this is, like you said, Kendrick Lamar, they did a little bit of Not Like Us, which I did have to laugh at Anna Gasteyer trying to perform the music with her voice.
Yeah. Yeah. It was all right. I thought it was funny. Yeah. You're right though. It's not the actual songs that are the funny part. It's more just leading up to it. It is.
Yeah.
It's pretty
I mean,
good.
Meryl Streep flipped him off. That was pretty great.
Yeah. Yeah, that was good.
Then, boy, did we get a giant chunk of Matt was fast forwarding through a lot of these performances.
I got to ask you, why Jelly Roll? Why? So many questions about Jelly Roll.
Yeah.
Why are we subjected to nonstop Jelly Roll in our lives? What has this guy done that makes him worthy of, look at this stage of performers and performances, legendary performances you have going on, and some legit like stars of today. Look, I even think that Miley Cyrus, she's kind of like a multiple thread. She can act, she can do comedy, she could do all this stuff. We couldn't have, if you wanted someone to cover some Johnny Cash songs, why is it Jelly Roll? What has this guy done?
And also, like, not for nothing, like, all right, he does a decent singing Johnny Cash. Not like Johnny Cash is the hardest person to sing songs as. Like, anybody can come up there and just bassy sing two country songs real fast.
You could have got so many cool, like, indie artists or, like, I mean, even if you wanted to go country, you could have got, like, I don't know, just why? Why Jelly Roll? Why are, like, I'm over it. Isn't the country over it by now? It's just, he's like a feature on every bad song you ever hear.
It's rough. It's
I don't
rough.
get it.
Then, speaking of someone that I don't get, then we get an introduction from Kate McKinnon, who has just I've never been the big Kate McKinnon fan that the rest of the world is. Yeah, like, I don't dislike her, but I was always just like, this is the one that everyone's like locking in as one of the greatest SNL cast members in history. Like, it didn't work for me, but she introduces Brandy is it Brandy Carlisle? I'm not
Brandy
super
Carlisle,
familiar.
who I thought was really good. Did you watch?
She was really good.
She was like amazing singer. I do know this song, The Joke. She was someone that I was like really surprised. Like, oh, that was one of the best performances, I thought.
Yeah, no, she did a good job. Mumford & Sons, who I can't believe is still like even just in the conversation. Not that I got nothing against Mumford & Sons, but they come out and sing I Will Wait, which was fine. I actually was more into them doing the Paul Simon cover of The Boxer after the fact than the original. And then I think both of us just used our veto card on the entire Snoop Dogg performance.
I didn't even watch it. I fast forwarded. I'm good on him.
Yeah. He did Gin and Juice, and then he did a new song featuring Jelly Roll.
Oh, God. Just what we needed. We needed 25 years washed Snoop featuring Jelly Roll. That is exactly what we needed. All right.
Then we got, I wasn't sure what to think of this performance as it was starting, of Arcade Fire, David Byrne, and St. Vincent covering Heroes by David Bowie. And I was like, David Byrne covering Heroes makes sense to me. Like, that was fine. Then they went into an original called Wake Up, and I was kind of zoning out throughout most of it. But then I was kind of into the craziness of them, like, marching through the crowd with this, like, brass band following them. And I was like, all right, are you an Arcade Fire guy? I never could get into them. And I always felt like they were a band I was supposed to love.
I'm not. And I was actually, and I'm always I'm open-minded to them. And I've just never heard a song I loved by them. And I watched that performance. Yeah, okay, they did the David Bowie song. But then the actual Arcade Fire song, just the whole time I was kind of annoyed by the singer. Like, something about him I was just totally annoyed by the whole time. And maybe that's wrong of me. I don't know. It was just, I didn't enjoy listening to or watching that.
Yeah. No, I only was like, oh, this is fun at the very end when they're just like
Yeah.
having their marching band through the crowd or whatever.
It was
But
overblown. Like,
it was
Just
way too long. That
Yeah.
performance was like 9 minutes. It was a
Yeah.
long performance.
right.
Then we get Bonnie Raitt, who, like, I got nothing against Bonnie Raitt. Bonnie Raitt's awesome.
yeah.
She did a song with Chris Martin from Coldplay after she did
Well,
a thing called Love.
She did I Can't Make You Love Me If You Don't, which is one of the ultimate sad songs of all time. Like, I think
Yeah.
that is such an amazing song. And actually, dude, recently I've kind of started liking Chris Martin and Coldplay because I was kind of like, Coldplay, like always sick of them, always like, but lately I've been you know what? I think I like them.
So I think that I think Coldplay is dramatically better than this band that I'm about to compare. But I think Coldplay went through a little bit of that Nickelback thing where just everyone kind of agreed that they were awful. But like,
Yeah.
I don't know, man. There are bands out there way worse who haven't written songs as beautiful as Fix You or The Scientist. You know what I mean? Like, there are some gorgeous songs that Coldplay has written over the last 20 years. I couldn't in good it's like someone trying to say like U2 is the worst band of all time when it's like maybe the last couple years of output hasn't been great, but they gave us Joshua Tree. They can't be in the conversation for worst ever.
No, definitely not. I will say the only thing that drove me a little bit crazy was in Bonnie's performance of I Can't Make You Love Me. She was doing the thing where she was like switching up the delivery a little bit. Like, instead of just performing it verbatim, which is what my ears wanted to hear so bad, she was like, I don't know, changing it. Not like in a Counting Crows extreme sort of way, but like enough to where you couldn't really sing along and you were like, oh, come on, just sing the song, you know? And maybe doing it that way is like a little jazzier or something, but I just wanted to hear it the way it's the way the classic recorded version is.
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. Adam Sandler does an introduction, and it was around this point, and they started calling attention to it more as the show went on. But, like, this is the point where you're like, oh, this is undeniably a live performance with no editing, where they are, like, trying to kill time so that, like, things can be set up. And this is where, you know, I don't know how much I'd be willing to pay for this tour, but if Nirvana went on another tour with Post Malone playing and singing guitar, I would be tempted, depending on the price tag, to go to that show, because Post Malone, I texted you, might be one of the most effortlessly cool badasses. Just like, he is going on stage with 3 rock and roll legends, and he is dressed like he just rolled out of bed with a cigarette dangling out of his mouth, like that this is just whatever to him. Dude. And it's so good.
It's so funny that he does every style of music. He does pop, he does rock, he does country, he does rap, and
he's good at basically all of them.
Yeah, he's pretty good at all of them, and he is pretty likable anytime you see like a interaction with him and somebody. He just seems like the nicest guy in the world. I love Matt. You know, we just recently did an episode about my Super Bowl trip. So many people that were in that room with me at a party were at this thing, including Post Malone performing as the lead singer of Nirvana.
Yeah. When Barb and I were watching it, we were creating our list of celebrities we would think would be a good hang. And by the end of this, we put Post Malone as the number one person that we saw on the special that we would say was probably going to be a good hang if you could just hang out with somebody. Yeah. I texted you also that Chris from Nirvana has aged to look like a Guess Who character.
Yeah. Is he also like a weird? I think
he's like, libertarian with like progressive leaning opinions. Like, I don't think he voted for Donald Trump.
Anyway.
Then we get John Mulaney up there again, just like buying time with some conversation. And then we get Robin with David Byrne, and they do Dancing on My Own and This Must Be the Place. And it's fine. Like, I had fun with this.
Yeah, it was okay. I much preferred This Must Be the Place.
Yes.
David Byrne's up there doing his thing. It's funny. It's just like, it's always the weird dancing and like strange singing. It was okay. I didn't mind it.
The
It's
word
all right.
fine, like I said, like that's where I'm landing on this. Maya Rudolph and Fred Armisen come out as Beyonce and Prince. It's a perfectly fine little bit. It wasn't blowing me away. But they introduce Cher, who comes out to sing If I Could Turn Back Time. This time there's a back to her outfit, so her butt's not hanging out. And again, like I feel like the word fine is what I keep landing on. But like this was fine. Like this was a good Cher performance of one of her biggest hits. Like it wasn't pitchy, it wasn't bad, but it was just kind of there.
Yeah, but I give her credit for going out there in that outfit. She's pushing 80 years old, still singing it pretty good. I don't know. I was kind of impressed. I thought it was kind of cool.
All right.
I don't know. I thought it was all right.
And then we get our last two performances of the night. Lady Gaga does a solo version of Shallow, which she had teased with Lonely Island.
Yeah.
I was talking about this with Barb when we were watching it. I love this song. I think the song Shallow is a fantastic song. I was saying that I think that this is one of those songs that is going to greatly outlive the movie that it's from. Like, I think 20 years from now, there will still be people going to a karaoke bar doing a duet of Shallow, and that most of the audience will know the song but not know that it was written specifically for a movie. Like, I think it will live past that movie in its own way. I love stripped down Lady Gaga so much more than Party Lady Gaga. Like, her and a piano, she is so talented as a singer.
Yeah, she's really good. I just don't understand with that room full of people why you're singing a song that's meant to be a
duet by yourself.
You could have had your choice of so many good partners for that duet.
I'm shocked that in that entire building with all the celebrities, we saw that Bradley Cooper just wasn't in the room at all.
Yeah, true.
Like, true. I was very confused. I was like, who's going to come out and do the duet? And then no one did, and I was very confused.
But before we get to the last performance, as far as like, they panned around the crowd a lot, and they want to show off all the celebrities. Dude, for a dude I saw at every party I went to at the Super Bowl, how does Key get so much screen time? Did you notice how much they showed Keegan-Michael Key? They showed him like 5 times during the thing. He wasn't on SNL. And
yeah, he did like one hosting gig or something.
Did he?
Like it's I just remember he may not have even hosted. He may have been like a surprise, but it was the Muppet Show bit. He was the security guard that was trying to arrest the old men from the balcony.
Oh, okay. Well, regardless, it's just funny, like, how is that guy everywhere over the past 2 weeks? He's just at every party and getting a lot of FaceTime.
My assumption?
What's that?
I bet he's just a super nice guy that everybody wants to have around. I think that despite what we feel sometimes, that if you're just a nice person, people want to keep inviting you to things.
Sure, I can see that. I think Johnny might have said hi to him. I didn't get a chance to say hi to him at the party, but the guy that got us into the parties was saying like, "Oh, I'll introduce you to him. He's super nice." So I believe that. That's cool.
And then we end, and I think that this is where you and I might have different opinions. I don't know.
Okay.
I've talked about this before on the show. I wrote about it, and there's going to be a full list version of the Thundred coming soon, and you and I both wrote a couple sentences about all of our thoughts, and I brought this up on the Strokes one. But in 2002 or whatever, when all of the bands exploded, I was all in. White Stripes, the Hives, the Vines, the Strokes, I loved all of it. And the White Stripes were definitely my favorite of all of those bands because I could just listen to Jack White play a guitar like a madman forever. Mm-hmm. And him coming out and doing what I think is an awesome cover of Rockin' in the Free World and then kind of seamlessly bleeding it into Seven Nation Army, I was like, this was one of my favorite performances of the night, and it's the perfect ending performance for the night, in my opinion. But I don't think you have the love of the White Stripes that I have, so I'm curious.
I've really come around on Jack White. I never really cared about him, but I think I was a little bit charmed by him being a cool dude, and it made me a little bit more open-minded to his music, maybe. And I definitely think it's like this is rock and roll music. This is kind of like the definition of rock and roll, like guitar solos and just like really rocking out up there. As far as the song "Rockin' in the Free World," I'm good on it at this point. Like, I don't know. I saw what Pearl Jam did that back in the day, right?
But the VMAs, they did it on some MTV show. With Neil Young. They played it with Neil Young, who wrote it. Right. Also, like, Jack White has literally just aged to look like Neil Young, which is crazy to me. Like, he kind of looks like 90s Neil Young now.
Yeah.
You know what it is that I like about Jack White? Because you're right. It is like that rock and roll. It's that, like, guitar solo and all that stuff. But I think what I like about Jack White more than a lot of the other stuff is that it is, like, wildly unpolished by nature. Yeah. Right? Like White Stripes and all that stuff, that it was like, let's do this with as few takes and overdubs as possible. Like, let's just go in there and play. And, like, it gives it that cool sound that, like, you don't get when it's, like, a rock band that's done, like, 40 different takes of the guitar solo and all of that stuff.
I mean, I agree totally. It's what makes me, except for rare exceptions, it's like, the world of music that I come from, it's like 99% of the albums are like the most overproduced, everything is, everything is just like perfect at all times. I get liking the stripped down and rockin' sound of something so raw. Like, and I think that ending it with Seven Nation Army was pretty cool. I thought that was good. It does rock. I'll give it that.
It's weird to think about, and you and I have talked about this before, because that feels like a riff that's existed forever, that, like, Jack White just kind of randomly created what is arguably one of the 10 most iconic guitar riffs of all time in our lifetime. Mm-hmm. Like we were both born before that riff existed, which is, like, kind of weird to think about, because like any football or soccer stadium you go to, you're going to hear people literally chanting that riff now.
Yeah. Any performances or performers you're surprised didn't happen at this?
Honestly,
Bono, I could have seen you two playing.
And maybe it's just because they've overdone it. Before Pearl Jam played Corduroy, or before Eddie Vedder played Corduroy, I thought he was going to go for the Elvis Costello Radio, because they started playing a song and he stopped them.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, he's going to play Radio. And then he just played like a regular Pearl Jam song. I was kind of shocked. I mean, because that's an infamous SNL music moment.
Yeah.
I would have loved to see the Beasties, but again, the Beasties and Elvis Costello were on the 25th anniversary, so maybe they were trying to, like, steer clear from some of those bands. I think that they did a good job. I think they did a good job when I'm thinking about it, of, like, hitting a lot between the two nights, hitting a lot of the, like, decades in music too. Like, it wasn't too heavy modern or too heavy retro. It was like a healthy blend of all of the different decades. I'm trying to think it'd be crazy is if Fear came out and played.
Well, what did you think about in the actual show? Did we need a Lil Wayne performance in the actual show?
Oh my God, it was so bad.
It was so bad.
I'm going to throw, and this might be a controversial take, but for like 3 or 4 years, Lil Wayne was constantly being referred to as the hottest rapper in the game, like the best MC, and I just never got it. Like, I like a couple Lil Wayne songs, but like when I'm thinking of like amazing MCs, we'll use Kendrick Lamar as an example, but like, when you're talking about even like Eminem, you're looking at like the speed in which they can rap, the type of wordplay that they can do, the type of like unique twists on phrases. And like, I feel like Lil Wayne is always just so matter-of-fact, braggadocious hip-hop with like nothing that wows me the way that like Eminem will sometimes hit this like cadence where you're like, how the fuck does a human mouth do that? Or like Kendrick Lamar will come up with this phrase that means like 14 different things when you look at it under a microscope. I get none of that from Lil Wayne.
For some reason, I thought you were a Lil Wayne fan.
No,
but
never.
I feel like with him, it was like quantity. Like he put out so much music, which I don't know. I think quality.
There
over
had
quantity.
to have been a better rapper that they could have put in that spot.
Yeah.
DMC, bring out Run DMC with the Roots back in them.
Yeah, sure.
That would have been amazing.
Yeah, I don't get it. And I know that Lil Wayne was upset that he didn't get the Super Bowl halftime show since it was in New Orleans or whatever. But like, based on that, I mean, maybe this wasn't his fault, but I felt like his mic wasn't even turned up.
No, I could barely catch what songs he was doing until the actual chorus would hit because he was mixed so low. There was something that I did want to say about last night's show that has nothing to do with music, but it was like I actually found myself getting choked up multiple times about it. Is Gilda Radner. Like the amount of love that original cast seems to have for the person Gilda Radner was, like they just kept bringing her up. And then at the very end, I'm not sure if you saw that they started holding up a photo of her behind Martin Short when he was doing the wrap up for the night. Like that was like very touching to me. And I love that they played the Don't Look Back in Anger short film, which I think is so eerie. Had you seen that before, or was that the first time you'd seen that? So that was the 4th season of SNL. They shot this weird sketch where the premise of it is that John Belushi outlived all of the SNL cast members. And literally the first line of dialogue is, everyone assumed I'd be the first one to go.
Oh, man.
And it's so creepy to hear him say that. And then the first grave he walks up to is Gilda Radner's grave and starts talking about Gilda Radner. Yeah. And it's like, that's so crazy that like the first 2 people in that sketch are the 2 people to die from the original cast. Like it's very eerie. But yeah, it's not a particularly funny sketch, but I think it's more noteworthy for just the creepiness of that being the bit now.
Right.
But yeah, all in all, it was fine. It was, I think I would put the music documentary a billion spaces over this. I would watch that music documentary over and over and over again. I will maybe revisit individual performances from the Homecoming concert, but otherwise I'm good on both of these. One and done with both of them.
Yeah, that's where I'm at with it. If you haven't watched them yet, I don't know, go ahead and watch them, but I feel like you'll think the same. I don't think there's anything that will live on forever in these. If the closest thing to it, I don't know, I could see a lot of people passing around the Nirvana performance maybe.
Yeah. But I also, like, there was a weird part of me where it's like, let's stop calling this a Nirvana reunion. Like, this is a different thing.
Yeah,
true. It's a different thing.
True. And, yeah, it was fine.
One hit is all you need to make the money guaranteed. And you can live off royalties forever.
And it makes me wonder, is it just a wonder, or is it one-hit thunder?
It's the Bray & Scarf President's Day sale and Maryland sales tax holiday with once-a-year appliance savings. Pay no Maryland sales tax this Saturday through Monday on select Energy Star appliances, combined with President's Day savings throughout the store. Come in today and save up to 40% on select appliances and get doorbuster savings on our best-selling GE Profile and Cafe appliances. Shop local and save in-store and online at brayandscarf.com, where it doesn't cost more to get more.
I don't think it overstates things to say that the Beatles were the greatest gift to entertainment and culture of our time, a secular religion, if you will, with their universal appeal and demonstrable impact on people's lives. I'm Robert Rodriguez, host of Something About the Beatles. With every episode, I speak with historians, musicians, artists, and Beatle witnesses, all in the service of fresh insights into the most joyous cultural entity the world has ever known. I hope you'll join me and listen to Something About the Beatles, now on Evergreen and wherever you get your podcasts.